Episode 4, Rising Suspicion. The days in the village grew brighter for Aster as his bond with Chris deepened. Chris had started showing Aster more of his world, how he found wood for carving, how the village celebrated small festivals, and how the people supported each other even when times were tough. Aster felt a growing admiration for Chris, who worked so hard yet remained so cheerful. But Aster's happiness was clouded by a growing tension. He often felt watched, like a pair of unseen eyes followed his every move. Even Chris noticed Aster's nervous glances. "Are you all right?" Chris asked one evening as they packed up the stall. "Yes," Aster replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Just tired, I guess." Chris nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Meanwhile, Henry's suspicions were turning into plans. He had pieced together enough clues: Aster's nightly disappearances, his interest in the village, and his connection to the young carver, Chris. Henry saw an opportunity to weaken the prince's reputation. If the king learned about Aster's secret trips, it could make him seem irresponsible, even rebellious. That would give Henry a chance to gain more power at court. One evening, as Aster approached Chris's stall, a group of villagers nearby whispered to each other. "Who is that boy?" one of them asked. "He doesn't seem like he belongs here." Another villager shrugged. "Maybe he's from another town. But he spends a lot of time with Chris." Chris overheard the conversation and gave Aster a curious look. "They're starting to notice you," he said lightly. "Maybe you're more interesting than you think." Aster laughed nervously, but Chris's words hit home. How long could he keep his royal identity hidden? Later that night, Chris asked Aster a question he had been holding back. "Where do you go after you leave here? You've never told me much about yourself." Aster froze for a moment. He didn't want to lie to Chris, but he wasn't ready to tell the truth either. "It's complicated," he said finally. "I can't explain everything, but I promise I'll tell you one day." Chris nodded, though his eyes held a flicker of doubt. "All right," he said softly. "I'll wait." As Aster returned to the palace that night, his thoughts were heavy. The whispers, Chris's questions, and the feeling of being watched all added to his unease. For the first time, he wondered if his secret life could endanger not just himself, but Chris and the village as well. At the same time, Henry began to put his plan into motion. He quietly sent one of the palace guards to follow Aster the next evening, hoping to gather proof of the prince's activities. Henry's suspicions were no longer just idle thoughts, they were becoming a threat. Unaware of the danger closing in, Aster clung to the spark of freedom he felt with Chris. But deep down, he knew his two worlds couldn't stay separate forever. And when they collided, the fallout could change everything.